Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. This is Sidebar. I have to say that we already have a few people in, like Ruthie and, hey, Alamo Talk, in early to the game. Also, we have Viper and Alex and Manuel, and we really, hey, Nelta. Hey, Daryl. How are y'all doing? This is Sidebar. I want to do the introductions early because sometimes I start yapping and I forget that I have got these guys that you're going to want to know. If this is the first time of being here, you can tell everybody that you know that you can go to sidebartv.com, and that's where you can find the social media platform of your choice, whether it be YouTube or X or Facebook. That's where you can find every Saturday this show happening. So you come here to hear the former Bexar County District Attorney Nico LaHood, trial liar, managing partner of LaHood, Norton, Goss, Lager.
Did she say trial liar?
Liar.
Is that a Freudian slip?
Oh
A
my
trial liar?
God.
Shit,
I did not. I would never say that.
heard it.
I was
heard
just bragging about you the other day. Let me.
All right, finish your.
No, hold that thought because that is
It's a trial liar.
horrible.
Well, most lawyers are liars. I mean, I don't like a lot of lawyers. I love my profession.
No. I was bragging about you just like hours ago.
It's okay, go
And
ahead.
George Araujo, scholar, former chemist, and pharmaceutical researcher and director. Okay, so when I was a young girl just out of college, my first gig was to cover the courthouse. And so that's where I learned to love the law, learned to understand it more. And I felt so bad for anybody that would come to a trial to see for the very first time, whether it's their family or whether they're just observing it. And I told this friend of mine, I said, I think for the very first time, I actually saw people lie on the stand after putting their hand on a Bible, and it made me sick. And one of the things that I was bragging about, Nico, is one thing that if I were to pick out something about your personality, one thing that I would say is the biggest attribute to you finding the questions in your heart and asking people is you are a very good reader of body language. And it allows you to find the chink in the armor. It allows you to see, is this person telling the truth? Is there some sort of twist on this story that is not the truth? Would you say that that's one of the things in your life that you have used or counted on when it comes to being an attorney?
Well, no, I was just teasing you earlier. But
No,
yeah, but I use it's common sense. You know, watch people. I try not to do the generalities because people get nervous when they talk, especially in front of people. And people look up to all these people that think they can read your expressions. Up to the left, you're lying. Up to the right, you're thinking of this. And
yeah,
shit, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess I'll let the experts talk about that. I just watch demeanor, facial expressions, eye contact, things of that nature without trying to overanalyze it, and I listen to their answers and then just try to capitalize on something they said. Does it make sense? Hopefully I have a command of the facts and I know where I want to take that witness and what goal I'm trying to accomplish with them. So anything that tries to divert me from that, I just redirect and lead questions. So that, I don't know. I mean, I haven't thought of it that way.
I would be, I don't know, George, what do you think about this? I mean, sometimes, I'm not saying I'm gullible because I'm not, but sometimes don't you think you take what people are saying as being the truth and that they're not lying? And so sometimes if you don't dig into it, like Nico, you're like led down this road of lies or something. And I'm not talking about all people. I'm just saying in general, when I talk to people, I think they're telling me the truth.
Yeah. Do you find that over time you're able to pick up body language that maybe suggests they're not being upfront? Or is it mostly for you inconsistencies in the way they present the facts or inconsistencies?
Inconsistencies over the body language, but I can tell when someone's not comfortable in their skin. Like if it's not natural, if it's, cause when we're training young lawyers, and I used to be an adjunct professor assisting the mock trial program at St. Mary's. My law partner, Jason Goss, is the actual trial advocacy mock trial coach there right now. And he's done very, very well. And so you have them record themselves. It's like going into politics. People that are going to start interviewing in public, we'll put a camera on them. When I got into politics back in whatever it was, 14 or whatever it was, the person that was advising me did a mock interview, and they recorded me like from a third person. I was like, what? Why am I making that face and that weird? Why am I squinting? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why am I looking off to this way? And it was just very odd. And I was a trial lawyer. I was an fairly experienced trial lawyer back then already. But you're in front of a jury is different than in front of a camera, or when live is different. With live interviews, live podcasting is different than live interviews, like on TV live. And so there's all different types of levels of that. And so you just have to get comfortable in your skin at just over time. But so I don't look too much on body language. I can tell when they're uncomfortable about something, but you're in front of a jury, you're going to be uncomfortable. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
For the most part.
It's not necessarily that they're lying.
It's not necessarily they're lying.
Comfortable in front of a bunch of strangers.
But I listen to the inconsistency or the consistency of their statements and what I believe that the evidence has and where they're going to go and where I'm trying to accomplish with them and how I'm going to get there. And then the key to cross-examination is you have to think on your feet.
Yeah.
If you can't think quick on your feet, you're not going to be as effective as a cross-examiner as somebody else that's, scripted. I've seen some lawyers, especially that work for the government, that just scripted. I mean, and then the witness gives them a great answer that just, okay, get off your notes for a second. I mean, you can have an outline of where you, just so you don't forget where you're going to go. So you go off and then you come back to your notes. I get that. I do the same thing because I want to make sure I make my points. But they'll say a wonderful answer that you could exploit and go down that road, or it's inconsistent.
If you just listen.
But they're just going to their next, and then what? And then, but you agree this, and listen to the answer. That's always we teach in cross-examination. Listen to the answer. Don't already think about your next question. And most people are terrible listeners anyway. Mm-hmm. So they're already thinking about what they're going to say. And you have people that stare at you and they're just gazing because they're thinking about what they're going to say next, and they're not even listening to you. So.
Well, I can testify, if I accomplish nothing else today, that he can think very quick on his feet.
I know.
I know.
I know.
Like lightning quick. I still have some scars. But that's why I don't. We try to argue. We don't argue for the sake of arguing. But I enjoy it because it. I mean, if you can survive it.
You're so lucky.
I mean, seriously. This is how I see it.
I get it.
If you can survive it and survive with some modicum of honor. Then I think you've accomplished something because he thinks on his feet quickly, and he's very good at exploiting vulnerabilities, and that's okay in a debate. Should.
That's the term I was thinking of.
Like
exploiting vulnerabilities.
But while he's thinking quickly, so I mean he's a formidable opponent in a debate. So I can just imagine a court of law where it's what you do for a living. Beware.
I know that you George, you are a home builder by trade, and you love real estate and a chemist background, and your dad loves real estate, and that's where you probably got the love for homes and real estate and purchasing real estate. But would you say that you are like your dad when it comes to being a lawyer? Who is it that you look up to? I'm not saying that you don't look up to your dad, but I'm just saying sometimes you look around and you're like, I love that. I love that guy. I want to study, not to be like him, but to be my version of him.
Yeah, I'm not just saying this to be any way. There's not anyone that really comes to mind.
Yeah.
My pop, I've never seen him in a full jury trial. I saw him in a bunch of hearings when we were younger. He tried a lot of his cases up front, then built up a reputation, and he had a bunch of hearings. My pop was an old school lawyer in the sense that they did everything. You didn't specialize. So he did criminal, he did personal injury, he did divorce, he did probate, he did workman's comp before the laws changed. He did everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so he was a family lawyer. So whenever a family, this is my lawyer, they went to Michael LaHood, and he took care of everything for them. So he didn't always have to go to a jury trial. He did a lot of that stuff up front. He has some pretty good war stories that he tells us. And I saw him in some hearings, and I saw a different Mike LaHood. So my pop was very reserved at home. And it's like, man, this guy's reserved, old school Lebanese dude, you know how he is. And then, but at the office, I'd walk with him. I used to love going to the courthouse with him. I loved going to work with my pop. I mean, he'd go to eat at a restaurant right near his office in this hotel with a bunch of lawyers and a judge, Judge Farrell. And they used to eat, and I used to listen to them. And we'd go to a little house on the other side of the courthouse, and they had these great tacos, these great flour tortillas. And so we used to go there, and I used to, my pop used to let me drink coffee with them, and I used to put way too much sugar, so I was all bouncing off the walls. And I just used to listen to their conversations and how they would talk and how they conduct themselves. I'd go into the courthouse, and this quiet, reserved man, stern, not vivacious. He wasn't like personality bouncing off the walls at home. He was old school Lebanese. But Mike, how you doing? Mike LaHood, Mr. LaHood, how's it going? And he's just the charm. He was charming people, right. And he was talking to people, and I was like, who is this dude that looks like my pop at home? And he had this completely different persona that was genuine, and he was very revered, and I'm honored to be his son and to follow in his footsteps that way. And I remember he told me something, and he goes, it has to be genuine though. He said, remember something about everybody, but it has to. And he said this. He made it clear. He goes, but it's got to be genuine, or else you're just. I don't know if he said BSing him because he wouldn't He never cussed in front of me. And ask them about it, and it'll let them know. It'll let them know how much you care about them. And I said, because he went up to this lady that was at the old courthouse before the Justice Center was built. I mean, he used to walk into that old courthouse. It was just, those memories I love. You know, they didn't have security. They didn't have metal detectors. I mean, you just ever walked in and out of the courthouse, and that second floor and everything with all the criminal and the civil was on the same side. And her name was Rosie. I don't know where she was, and he doesn't remember now. But he goes, Rosie, how's your son's ankle? And she goes, Michael, thank you for asking me about that. You know, it's better. You know, you had to cast it up. And then that's when he said, do it genuinely, but remember something. And it'll let them know that you care about them, because it was important enough for you to remember and ask about it. I never forgot that. But I love the way that he said, but make sure it's genuine. Or maybe he might have said sincere. I don't remember which one he said, but
Nico, I love that story, and I'm so glad you told me about it. But there's one thing that's stuck in my mind, and that says, your dad never cussed in front of you. So that means you got that cussing from your mother?
My mom's side. I mean, my grandma, my uncles. I mean, I don't know what the hell. I mean,
thanks, Mama.
You know what I mean? Shit. I mean, my mom didn't cuss. My mom didn't, because my mom, when she was younger, she became a born-again Christian, you know? And so I remember, I'll never forget, she might be listening, so she'll bust my balls later, but we were crossing over out of the neighborhood, and she goes, oh, those people are driving like bats out of Hades. I said, and in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck? What did you say? What's Hades? And you couldn't say hell. She's probably laughing. Now she says it all, man. This chick's like a sailor. But I mean, but
Ma,
she never.
Ma, what the?
In my mind, I wouldn't say it. Because let me tell you what, my older brother, God rest his soul, he ratted me out for saying the F word at a school festival. And my mom slapped the shit out of me. She won't admit it. She slapped the shit out of me. I mean, I was like covering up like Rocky 1. And she slapped it's the only time I remember her slapping me. The F word was the deal back then. You could not say the F word.
I can just hear Mama Norma saying that.
Yeah,
Don't ever say the F word. I'm going to slap the shit out of you.
Yeah, she didn't say that. She was a
I know we would
born-again
we would ask my mom, what is that thing that they're always spray painting on walls? It's F-U-C-K. And she's like, it's a word that's so horrible that they have to write it and not say it. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, now we know. You just write it everywhere. Okay. We started the show talking about liars and about body language and about everything. So 3 of the topics that we want to talk about today, of course, this Democratic Socialists of America, definitely have to talk about that. And then Spain and all of these dudes rushing to this little...
And the key word is dudes.
Dudes.
Yeah.
I didn't see any women, young dudes. If we could talk about that. But then the lying part... Can we talk about Dr. Fauci?
Yeah.
And I even had Dom tell me, what is it exactly that he said? Acting on the advice of legal counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based on my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. 111 times. And it doesn't matter if there was any body language. It doesn't matter if he wanted to say that, didn't want to say that. Like, whose decision do you think that it was to do that?
Ultimately his, on the advice of his counsel, but you can't just assert Fifth Amendment just for everything. You can't do a blanket Fifth Amendment assertion. It's only when you're being compelled to potentially incriminate yourself. No, I'm a huge fan of the Fifth Amendment. Obviously, my clients invoke it all the time, and innocent people invoke the Fifth Amendment. So this is not. So I want to be objective, even though I can't stand this sons of a bitch. I mean, I think Fauci is disgraceful. I'm going to tell you, I just think he is. I mean, even back then, I knew he was a lying son of a bitch. And the thing is, he had a stake in this whole deal. He lied about it. I think the evidence is overwhelming at the time. Without him, we would have to go through a court of law. But at least on the surface, we definitely have prima facie at the very least, if not probable cause evidence to move forward.
What is prima facie?
Just any evidence at all. It's just enough evidence. It's colorable to move forward. It's just at the lowest level of evidence.
On its face.
On its face. Yeah. The definition. Exactly. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. On its face, there's something here. Doesn't mean that it's true. It's just on its face. You're not offended by somebody making this accusation. But just this, you can't do that. So he does this Fifth Amendment, invocation of his Fifth Amendment 111 times. Doesn't even answer what color his tie is.
So
but here's the thing that irritates me. He's big balling it weeks before or sometime before on all these shows saying, I'm not afraid to go in front of Congress. I got nothing to hide. Well, yeah, you do. I mean, and again, the Fifth Amendment doesn't mean you have everything to hide, but just answer something. Answer questions. I mean, and here's the thing that really got me as a lawyer. You've been pardoned, asshole.
That's what I didn't
You have
get.
this blanket pardon since 2014. You have this, so he's just protecting his image now. Now here's the deal, and I'll just give you some general stuff, and you guys can ask questions, and we can talk this through. So he's not going to be found. They can't prosecute him for perjury. They can't, but they can get him for contempt. I think they can get him for contempt of court. If you look at that and you understand that, I think you can get him for contempt.
And they've started the process in that.
And I think they
Let's
should.
see where that goes.
And when people ask, what is that? It's a willful obstruction of the court's process without legal basis. So the willful obstruction of a court's process. Congress was trying to invoke a process here to try to find out truth, and he willfully obstructed it. You've been given a pardon. So when you're in court and you've been given a full pardon, the judge will tell you, you can't invoke your right, your Fifth Amendment right, because you can't get in trouble.
Yeah.
So you're not going to incriminate yourself. I mean, legally, they're not. They've offered an immunity deal. I've granted it. The judge ultimately grants it, and you're covered. So you cannot. The Fifth Amendment is not a good. Now you can be held in contempt of court if you don't answer their questions, and that's exactly what should happen. Now, do we want an 80-something-year-old dude going to prison?
Yes.
We can debate that all day long. But he needs to be prosecuted. He needs to be fined. This guy benefited financially from this shit. So all these people out there that have your little Fauci, superhero doll, please just humble yourself and burn that shit. Just burn it. Just say, I was wrong. I got duped. I got scared. Just say that. I mean, everybody's gone through that in their life. But people died from this shit. 5 to 10 million people. People weren't with their loved one when they passed away. My sister-in-law was here when she gave birth, and Davi had to go in there with masks on, and nobody else could go in there. Her and her husband, and Diana's husband, were the only ones in there. I take it back. Kiki was in there by himself. Davi's at the window with Carlos. Thank God they went to this hospital where the birthing area was right near a window. I mean, talk about Davi's outside with Carlos, their brother, watching the birth of the baby.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the kind of
Not
shit.
to mention the people that died alone.
That's my point. I said that earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, this is disgusting what happened to the American people and to the world. And Fauci funded it. He funded it. He was in charge of a $6 billion fund. He was the most powerful medical person in the world, arguably.
Seriously.
He could ruin your career and not give you funding based off what he said. He had employees apply for financial awards for his asshole. So Fauci's so great, and he got like $800,000, whatever it was. It's a crazy amount of money because he's so great. He's a fucking fraud, and he's a liar. And so although I completely support the Fifth Amendment, not this blanket Fifth Amendment, and obviously someone who's been pardoned, you have nothing to protect yourself from. You've been absolved. That's it. So you should talk about everything unless you're trying to protect your image because he's such a narcissist. So I mean, I'm trying not to be over. I mean, because I just saw the angst in this country. People divided. I mean, people lost friendships over this shit.
Oh my gosh.
It was horrible, man. Over masks,
Fired.
distancing, and stupid jabs and vaccines. That shit. Which this guy took a vaccine, had some cardiac farction or some shit, and he didn't even want to admit that he had an adverse reaction to the vaccine because he was perpetrating this fraud amongst the American people. So I despise that shit. God hates lies. I can't stand that shit. And for this guy to do this, and all the people that held him up like he was some demigod or something, and he's nothing but a fraud that benefited from it. And so financially, something he should be held accountable. I really do. I'll leave it open for debate on whether people think he should go to prison or not. But this guy's a disgrace and should be treated as someone that's scum, because he is. I think he's scum.
I mean, I feel the exact same way, and we've been talking about this since literally the very beginning. I mean, people can go back and look at Sidebar during the COVID crisis, and we were talking politics and we were talking science and the politicization of science and how this man was at the center of doing that. In fact, he got to a point where anytime there was any kind of repudiation of what he said or any pushback, he says that their argument, meaning his opponents, are not against they're not against me. They're against science himself, and I am science.
Yes.
I mean, to me, that told me it's the height of arrogance that this man was trafficking in. And we knew, I knew. I mean, this is, you mentioned that I'm a home builder, but the vast majority of my young adult life was spent in corporate science. So I'm a chemist by training. I've done a lot of pharmaceutical science and worked both in pharmaceutical manufacturing and clinical development. So I know a lot about this topic, because it's what I did for a living. And it was my first love, at least corporately and professionally. And so I'm credentialed in this area, and I knew from the get-go, and Nico and I had conversations literally from the get-go, that everything that was being said by the sort of corporate public health complex led by this man was absolutely false.
Can I give you honor where honor is due? I'm going to say this. As much as I love disagreeing with my brother, and like he said earlier, we like to spar with each other.
Yeah.
George was ahead of the curve on all the
Absolutely.
the shit that I heard it from George first. Because he was reading, and George used to say, "I'm not genius. I'm just reading." But you know how to. It's your talent. You're skilled at this.
I have goosebumps.
He was
Yes.
reading. He was reading
Yes.
the articles. He was reading the studies. He used to do them. He did bench work, and that's a term that means that he was in the actual laboratory. So he understand viral molecules, bacterial molecules. He knew the N95 masks. He used them. I mean, he was actually having to go in there, and he knew how to use it, how it was appropriated appropriately. And he read the studies on virology before, because you're trained to do that, George. And I have to admit, George, I'm not joking. I heard it nowhere. Maybe Bobby Kennedy and his group, because they had such a great, the Children's Health Defense
Yes.
Fund. I mean,
Yes.
but you were in that group of people.
Tiny group.
And then you started hearing like Dr. Corey and other
Yeah.
people say, "Hey, Dr. McCullough," which I'm glad we're out there, but they got silenced and they were canceled.
So did
Canceled.
Kennedy.
All of them. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
I remember that.
I mean, it's canceled. If you have the truth on your side, I mean, who's the arbiter of these fact checkers? None of these fact checkers. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take away from what you were saying, George. I wanted to say that George was. He was ahead of the curve on this stuff, and he was actually reading the science. And you were telling me offline, that's how we brought George to the show, Karen, remember?
I know, and I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
You and I were just
remember
trucking
that.
along for
I
8 months or
know.
a year or whatever it was, and then all this stuff happened. And I said, "Look, my buddy's a
know.
chemist. He used to work in pharma.
Talk
he used to
about a
work in the
God thing.
laboratory." I said, "Let's bring George on for a week
Yeah.
or two to explain
Yeah.
this." But then everybody was obsessed with this cult of COVID,
Yeah.
and not that it wasn't real, but we knew the people that were in danger of
I
that,
know.
the comorbidities, and we talked about that in the studies and
The reporting.
the VAERS studies and all this, the vaccine adverse events reporting system. We were checking that every week almost. And then so George went from a 1 to 2 week special guest into now he's like herpes. We can't get rid of him. I mean, so
I knew that was coming. And it was just, Nico, it was just one inconsistency after another. And what this guy was saying was not only a departure from established epidemiological science, but his own training. I mean, this is a guy who kept talking about he was an MD and he cared about patients, and because of his experience with patients, the reality is he didn't have any experience with patients. This guy came out of his internal residency and never actually interacted with the patients. He became a bureaucrat. He became an office manager, essentially, and helped scientists get money. And this guy, he wouldn't know epidemiology if it bit him in the ass. This is the point. And the stuff that he was saying, it seemed to me it was obviously misinformed and obviously misleading. And if you look at the inconsistencies, they're staggering. And so what I think, Nico, is that the most incriminating piece of evidence is all the unredacted portions of his diaries, which were disclosed prior to the hearing by this government committee from Homeland
How did they
Security
get it?
and
How did
Government
they get
Affairs.
his diary?
Well, in the process of discovery and so
and he
forth.
turned it over.
I know,
mean,
but
that's
no.
stupid.
Did Kennedy turn it over? I mean, like, how did
How
it
did they
come
get
to
it?
be?
Yeah.
The mechanics of how it was turned over were not disclosed,
Okay,
but
all right.
that hasn't been dismissed. It hasn't been called out at all, neither by he or his
Yeah.
attorneys, and it's been public knowledge for a while. I mean, it was disclosed at this point.
But wasn't it on government servers? I mean, it was
Oh,
not
it's-
in a place
it's
that was
available.
hidden.
It's available
Yeah.
now. But
What kind of guy
suffice it-
keeps journals on his like evil side?
Well, we would find out. We found a number of
Say
things.
it.
We certainly found out that a title is no substitute for character or competence. I'll tell you that right now. If you're ever wondering, watch the hearings and certainly read his diaries. But you could see that privately he was saying or believing something, and publicly he was disclosing other things. So in private, he believed the lab leak theory. In public, he repudiated it and said that it was far-fetched to anyone who... And it was obvious to me, it seemed obvious to me within about 2 or 3 weeks that this was a lab leak issue, just because of the history on bat-borne coronaviruses and SARS-CoV-2 viruses. It just seemed obvious to me that was the case, particularly since the Wuhan Institute of Virology had a long reputation for leaking. This is a problem that's been going on there for a while. And so, but for him to push back and then to privately believe it, that's an issue.
Yeah.
He knew, because he had access to the data that everybody else had. He knew that the virus he knew that the notion that if you were vaccinated and couldn't transmit the virus or that was foolish. And yet in public, he made that claim. it's unlikely that you're going to contract it if you've been vaccinated, and it's also unlikely that you're going to transmit. There's nothing in the
There's not a
data that would
bigger
ever
lie.
support that, and
I
he knew
know.
that, and yet publicly he disclosed that. And so the idea of gain of function research, the notion that he just sort of dismissed knowing anything about it, when he in fact had been issuing grants to fund it. I mean, he had been doing this for decades. This came out.
He may benefited financially from this stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, and so what
Talk
Hawley's
about
saying is
conflict
that
of
there's
interest, man.
over $1 million is what he said. You can't take any cash from your role in government. It's Cash for Bureaucrats Act, I think, that he cited in his violation. And we're talking about cash giftings from the Smithsonian Institute and from the National Academy of Medicine and from the CDC Foundation and so forth. And so, yeah, I mean, he enlisted government resources to help him get that cash. This man is a corrupt bureaucrat.
Yeah.
End of story. And I was going to say, what kind of person? Deeply narcissistic individual.
I just have that word written down on my paper.
Truly narcissistic.
Explain what that is, because the people overuse that word.
Because people have used that about Trump, and I've always pushed back and said, no, Trump's not a narcissist. I mean, he's self-indulgent. He can be selfish. He can be self-centered. All that's true. But a narcissist isn't just self-centered, but is self-centered without any empathy for others, without any sympathy for the suffering of others. I don't think you can make that claim about Trump. I think you can certainly make that claim about Fauci. I mean, he was truly and legitimately leaving a trail of broken bodies by advancing policies that were misguided and misleading, that he knew were false. But because it put him at the center of the room and center of attention, he was okay. He was okay with that collateral damage. To actually state in his diaries that it is quite likely that he was the most famous person on the face of the earth at the time, despite everything that was going on. Very little focus, if any, on the suffering of others, while pitching
He said that in his diary, I'm likely the most famous person on the earth.
Indeed. And just, I mean, we could literally spend an hour on this. I think this guy should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Wow. This man should spend the rest of his miserable life in jail. That's the just thing. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't think, because here's the problem, fundamental problem. It's not just Fauci. Fauci represents a corruption of the system. There is an apparatus behind Fauci that supported this mindset, and to some extent, and God bless RFK Jr., but he's one guy and he's not wearing a cape.
Yeah.
This is a corrupt system that's okay with amassing power and influence at the cost of human lives. Fauci's happened to have been the representative of that system, a proud representative of it, a despicable representative of it, truly the embodiment of it. But if you think this is all about Fauci, it sure as hell isn't. And I really hope that in the Trump tenure, Nico, I hope that they're shoring this system up. It's going to take a hell of a lot more than 4 years. I can tell you that right now. So
something has got to happen to him, though. Something.
It's absolutely heartbreaking when you think about the human damage. I mean, it's just. But I think it's the height of injustice.
Fear-mongering. And George did this. Was talking about this. It wasn't like George was. He was just reading what was already available to us. That the CDC had out. There were studies that were just buried under there, and we knew. And then notice how the information kept changing. Well, you have to have 2 comorbidities to be at risk. And then it came out, you have to have 4 or 6. I mean, the people, we knew the people that were at risk, and it wasn't young people.
Yeah.
And masking up these kids. I mean, there's people that still, I mean, I see people still, I saw a few, not a lot, thank God. I saw some young dude with long hair, colored hair, wearing masks, riding a bike outside.
I see it every day.
I don't.
Every day in my neighborhood.
Well, then I don't want to go
No,
to
the
your
fact
neighborhood.
remains that if you were less than 65 or 75 years of age and you weren't immunocompromised, the chances of you having to worry about this virus were slim to none. And so for this dipshit to get out there with a straight face and say it was a good idea for 2-year-olds to be wearing masks is the height of stupidity and willful malfeasance. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
I mean, me and my simple mindset, I go, why don't we just have 2 things came to mind back then, if you remember the shows. I said, why don't we just have a slew of homeless people stacked dead? If this was such a horrific, I mean, talk about not good hygiene. Talk about not good dental hygiene. Talk about not worrying about coalescing together. And then every jujitsu school in America should have had stacks of dead bodies, and they didn't.
They closed the gyms, remember?
Well, no, but
Yeah.
not for long. I mean, not they opened back up, and I'm just saying. I mean, it doesn't get any closer than grappling and jujitsu. I mean, of course,
Right.
they did extra steps. They would spray the mats, and they still do. I think those are good protocols moving forward. But and if you think you're sick, well, then don't train that day. But I mean,
But those are the healthiest people.
But now people get COVID
Right.
and nobody freaks out about it. It's like the flu.
I think this is why it was such an effective, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which creates, induces the COVID disease. The reason why this was such an effective political weapon and a bioweapon is because of the traits or the structure of the disease, the idea that there is this prolonged onset of symptoms. And so all these people are walking around, they're asymptomatic, but you got to be careful because they're sort of transmitting disease unless they're vaccinated. And like Biden said, you are not going to die if you have the vaccine, which was, of course, complete bullshit. But this idea that there's this period of silence during which you're infecting your neighbors. And so the only solution,
unless you sit at
is
a table in a
lockdowns.
restaurant.
Remember that? That's another thing.
I used to sit in a restaurant. I said, and there were times that I said it out loud. I was like, how stupid are these people? And I'd be like, shh, don't say that. I go, it just makes no sense. You walk in as if viruses say, oh, you're at home base. You're at the table at restaurant A, B, or C. And then you take this stupid ass bullshit mask off that doesn't work with a viral molecule, by the way. Hello. Yeah. And then you put it on the table, or you put it in your dirty ass pocket with your dirty ass fucking hands. And then and then you put it back on to stand up to go to get your drink refilled. But then you take it off. The virus knows not to touch you while you're sitting down. This stupidity, I'm sorry, it just is. And the ignorance because of the fear. The fear brings this stupid response. It just does. And you quit critically thinking. And the thing that irritated me, because we took some shit for this back then, as if you asked questions, you were whatever. No, I live in America, asshole. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to push back on Fauci, on the government, on any expert. If you're an expert, then you should crush me with your data. I should be silenced in a second. And they couldn't do that. They had to shut you up. They couldn't spar back and forth with you. And then don't even get me started on ivermectin and things that...
That's what people are asking about online.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and alternate treatments were squashed readily because there was political gain. There was political benefit out of pushing a narrative. And so this was a perfect bioweapon. It created enough fear in the culture, the idea that there's this silent killer and whammo, it's going to hit you and it's going to drop you dead. But in reality, you could see data after data after data from country after country that showed that this was not the case. We knew who it was killing. Yep. We knew to what extent it was killing, and it was nowhere near. I mean, I basically said, what if you get it? So what? I said, based on the profile that I'm seeing, so what if you get it? Great. It'll make your immune system stronger and mosey on down the road. If you are, in fact, an older individual and you have other immunocompromised conditions, then, in fact, you should be under surveillance, perhaps quarantine. But that is a limited portion of the population. You don't quarantine everybody. And so I knew from the get-go that this was being used for political purposes.
You'll never have natural immunity.
No, that's exactly right. Nico, this basically, if you remember, I said the way I characterized it was, look, it's like the flu kind of in reverse, right? You typically get it from your kids. Right? Kids go to school, you get the flu, and the adults get it. In this case, the kids didn't get it. It was the opposite. It was adults, older adults who were immunocompromised. All of the data showed it to be the case. And so, what concerned me is all of the politics behind it and the money behind it. The gain of function stuff was a very big deal. Kudos to Rand Paul for bringing that out early and often and showing that this wasn't something peripherally in the Fauci universe. This was at the center of the Fauci universe. I mean, he brought out all kinds of very important details that it was because Fauci it was all plausible deniability, but the reality is that Rand Paul had him dead to rights. The reality that Fauci was responsible for authorizing grants to Echo Health Alliance, led by Peter Daszak, who then contracted with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and the very high likelihood that this simply had been deliberately or accidentally leaked from the lab.
And did I miss it? And where were all the Democrats? During this hearing, not one of them opened their stupid ass mouths because they were
They
complicit.
lionized this guy. They deified him.
Exactly. And whether they believed it or not, I mean, there were some local senators here. No one comes into my office unless you're vaccinated and masked up. And I'll refrain from saying his name because I like him as a person, but he's a fucking idiot when it comes to politics. And so it just irritates me. And I mean, the ventilators. How many people died from the ventilators? Forget it. I mean, they put you on a ventilator right while you were done. I mean, why do we keep using ventilators? The money that was made off this shit was ridiculous at people's expenses. And then the testing. You tested for COVID, but then you picked up on the flu virus. I mean, so many people are theorizing, and I don't know, are hypothesizing that when you tested positive for COVID, maybe you had the flu. Like, I don't know if I had it or not. I had all the symptoms. Body aches. I lost my taste. I had it for 2 days, 2.5 days. I took zinc. I doubled up on my D. I took zinc, and I take garlic pills and all that stuff, and I took some colonial silver. And I was better. I never stopped meeting with clients if they wanted to meet. I never wore a mask. The only time I covered my face, it was in Costco, because I almost got in a fight in Costco because some guy comes up to me like, cover your face. I go, for what? Because he said so. Then I go, I know criminal trespass laws and I got to come back to Costco. So then just to defy them, I put a bandana, like an old school rob your train bandana back from the Wild West. Because if you think that this is going to protect you, you're as stupid as you look, first of all. And I'm going to wear a fucking bandana. Because a year ago, you would have called the cops if I'd walked in with a bandana. But because you're so fearful, the bandana is saving the world. But this is how stupid we got. Yeah. And we fell for it. And I just hope and pray, that we learned as a country that this can't happen again. That you can push back, you can ask questions, we have common sense. Good for Joe Rogan. Good for some of these people that use their platforms and said, no, I'm not going to, and they educated people and they encouraged other people to push back.
That became the pushback. It was not on the facts. It was not on the evidence. It was on the credentials. Like it was a sort of an onslaught of the credentialed class. I remember T-shirts that said, "Trust me, I'm an epidemiologist." You know, and they literally meant that. No, I don't trust you because everything you said has been bullshit. And you had people who were credentialed. I mean, I would get in here and I would talk out of 16 years of experience in the pharma industry, saying this is patently bullshit. Yep. I mean, the PCR testing. I remember, and I remember.
What that is. PCR.
It's polymerase chain reaction. That was the sort of go-to means of testing, presence or absence, basically, of mRNA. Viral fragments. The problem is that it doesn't often differentiate between degraded viral fragments and live viral fragments. So I can contract COVID, I can resolve it naturally, but because there may be some residual, well, that's a problem. I'm now flagged. I'm just giving you one example. There's lots of flaws with the test. There are procedural, there are technological, there are biological flaws, and so these were called out. I remember on Sidebar, because there would be some news release, and they would put in a strand of the science, and then we'd have to comment on it. So people are like, you guys are constantly talking about COVID. Yeah, because it's being used as a political weapon. There's very little scientific discussion. Whenever there's pushback, you're seen as some conspiratorial zealot. And so there was not engagement on the substance. So we were talking about cloth and surgical masks. Okay, I mean, this was a legitimate issue from the get-go. I was trying to explain basic PPE, personal protective equipment. Cloth and surgical masks do not protect against respiratory airborne viruses because it travels as an aerosolized particulate matter. It's so tiny that it will literally fly through when you cough, when you sneeze. Not only that, it's not fit to your face. They're cloth and surgical masks, which is why the problem with N95 masks, which are only 95% effective, but they have to be properly fitted. I remember in pharma, you had to go through a protocol to properly fit whenever you went into...
And they did smell testing, if you could smell, if you could do this.
Right, into a controlled environment. Yeah. And that's right, that's one of the ways. You turn your head, if you can smell anything, you failed it, you got to start over. And so it's a multi-step process. The idea that you can just go to Target and slap something on your face and you're fine, or that you can put on your bandana is just ludicrous.
George, what was the thing about viral molecules versus bacterial molecules? And now I forget, I used to have it memorized back then.
I know, I remember.
It was how many, is it nanometers? How many viral molecules are and fit in the circumference of a hair follicle? I mean, when we used to give that example, it was mind-blowing how small these viral molecules are and that nothing's going to stop them unless you get a body condom on and you go into some, testing center. Do you remember the analogy or the do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, a viral molecule is, I think I used something like, 100,000 times less than half the width of a human hair or something like that. I was just trying to point out the fact that a viral molecule is infinitely more
But how
small.
many viral molecules fit in the circumference of a human hair?
Yeah, I didn't characterize
Maybe I translated what you said, but it's like 100,000, right?
Yeah,
Am I saying it right?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
You are. And I was trying to contrast that with bacteria. Like something like
George is not going to agree because he has to have the exact number.
Well, no, it's okay. But the example was there. But even the data was skewed, Karen. Remember that?
No, I know. It was
and even at some point,
ridiculous.
this one state, I don't know, attorney general, somebody had to admit, their health official had to admit that they were collecting the data wrong. Meaning, if you got in a car accident and you tested positive for COVID, you died for COVID. Forget the fact that your guts are hanging out, or that you were shot, or you fell out of a plane. You know what? But he had COVID, so it was a COVID death. No, I fell out of a plane. I mean, it was that, and I'm not being facetious. It was that type of data collection. So who knows what the real numbers are? And then we talked about this. I'm sorry that I'm all these thoughts. I'm having a flashback. I'm so irritated by that season of our lives because so many people were hurt from it, and the level of lies and deception to manipulate people drives me insane. It makes me sick. And the fact that the people were censored, that's the part that really worried me. Remember I said that? I go, don't worry about the misinformation, because real information and free speech takes care of misinformation. Worry about the censorship. I said that back then.
But then we had that.
But remember, when we were younger, and all of us are old enough, I did. I mean, we had chickenpox parties. I mean, my older brother Mike had the chickenpox.
I love that story.
My mom made me. We had 2 single bed. I go, I don't want to sleep with Mike. He goes, you have to lay down with your brother. So I had to sleep with him until I got the chickenpox, and then I had to stay home for 4 or 5 days or whatever with a bunch of itchy things on me. And I ate ice cream and ate all kinds of shit and watched TV or cartoons, and that was it. I was happy as a lark. I didn't care. And then you don't get the chickenpox. I mean, same with
But
mumps.
even Fauci knew that. He knew that
course he
if you
did.
got COVID, you didn't need the COVID shot because
Well, you don't need
were
the COVID
already
shot.
immune.
You don't need the COVID shot anyway.
Well, even him saying that, though.
Lots of bullshit narratives on herd immunity, and so
Yeah.
we had to dispense those rumors that noticed the herd immunity are somehow tied to vaccination, when in fact it's the opposite of that.
Yeah,
It's when
he
you resolve
knows
the wild
that.
type of a virus without any medication, or a vaccine or whatever, and you resolve it naturally. And it might make you miserable, but in the end you end up with a basically primed immune system. I was trying to go back to my text when you and I were texting about these analogies, and I can't find it. But it comes down to basic math. A viral molecule is around 0.02 microns, and a human hair is around 100 microns. So if you divide 100 by 0.02, you get thousands. You get 5,000. You can put literally 5,000 viral molecules inside the width of a human hair. That was my point. And so that's how tiny this is. And so the notion that you're going to slap on, a bandana that mom gives you, and that's going to protect you against that is just absurd and ridiculous. And in the 3-foot and the 6-foot rule and the changing standards, and the notion that he gets on, Fauci, on national television, I think it was March 31st of 2020, to say that if you're wearing cloth and surgical masks, you're deluding yourself. It's basically a psychological Band-Aid. And then literally within a month, he's saying, you got to wear cloth and surgical masks. And I'm sitting there
Same
saying,
month.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, how did 50 years of scientific precedent change in 30 days? So this guy was willfully negligent, gross negligent. They had to throw the book at him, and I don't give a shit if he spends the rest of his life in jail. When you consider the graveyard of bodies this guy is single-handedly responsible for, because he was the authority. He was the go-to guy. And by the admission of his own diary, he said that celebrities were coming up to him. Julia Roberts wanted to shake his hand because they wanted to get the latest. And Andrew Cuomo just reached out to me because he wanted to talk. He was concerned. The self-inflation in the diaries. This guy is a narcissistic, dangerous individual who used his position of influence to mislead people into a long, dark corridor of death, and he needs to be held accountable. But it's not just Fauci. We need to ask ourselves, what sort of system enabled this?
Yeah.
He didn't parachute out of the sky. He didn't emerge from the center of the earth. Where did this guy come from? That's what we got to wrestle with ourselves. And have we dealt with that? I don't think we have.
This is an issue, Karen, that Republicans and Democrats should agree on.
I know.
That's
You
it.
would think.
Just agree on. We should agree on this issue. We should agree on Islamization of this country. We should agree on free speech. Those things, at least, then we can go back to arguing and trying to persuade each other. But those 3 things, we should agree on everything. We should agree on that. But go ahead, Karen. I know you
Okay,
wanted to
so
say something.
just 3 comments that pop out to me. One, Doug, and I think several other people have said, no one's going to pay the price. No one's going to be held accountable. Come on. Everybody knows that. Ed said, wearing a mask is like using a tennis net to stop a mosquito. And then Carolyn says, this was just the dress rehearsal for communism. Everybody get in line.
People said that back then. We said it. Others said it back then. We agreed with it. I mean, but I hope it backfires, because I hope. I don't know. It looks like it's working pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
people.
does.
Well, you just promise free shit. You lie to them. You scare them to death, and then you act like you're going to come in and fix things. And then, of course, you fear, and I'm the savior. So you create your own storm, and then you prop yourself up as the savior of the storm. Well, and then you throw a bunch of money at somebody or benefits or whatever lies. That's communism 101, just in a nutshell.
So doesn't this sound like DSA? I mean, Democratic Socialist of America. Does
you
it
think?
Does it sound like that? Are there similarities?
Well, but
they are gaining
explain
hold.
what the issue is. Explain what the issue with that.
Well, on their website, what are they? They want to get rid of the president. They want to get rid of Congress,
Senate.
jails,
Senate.
jails, police, borders. What else? I'm trying to think of the
throwing
list.
gun rights in
The
there
Senate,
too.
the presidency, the Supreme Court, ICE, borders, prisons, defund the Pentagon, mass amnesty for illegals. Yeah, you overthrow the Constitution of the United States, you burn it all down, and in its stead, you create a corrupt machine that suits a few at the cost of the many.
Yep, oligarchy.
This isn't rocket science. This is an experiment that's been tried and failed and tried and failed. And at the center of its success are two things: ignorance, and it appeals to the lowest impulse in human beings. Ignorance, in the sense that people don't live very long, and so stupidity tends to be perpetuated when you don't educate and you don't live very long. So we haven't been educating. That's part of the problem. The American classroom has been a place, a gross cathedral of ignorance for decades. And so instead of teaching about the horrors of communism, it gets respun as some answer to a problem. That's A, ignorance. The second issue is that it appeals to the lowest impulse in human beings, called envy. You are taught to envy what your neighbor has. If your neighbor has succeeded, if your neighbor has wealth, if your neighbor has anything more than you, then clearly your neighbor stole it from someone. So he victimized someone in order to have it. And therefore, you create this false sense of moral superiority and taking that back from your neighbor and giving it unto yourself. Because remember, you're morally superior. That's why hypocrisy is a value of the left.
Yeah, it's a
because it's
cornerstone.
inculcated. It's basically an article of faith. We need to realize what we're dealing with, or we're never going to solve the problem. We're going to be swatting at symptoms and never getting the root cause. The reality is that this worldview needs to be extracted from American life. We need to do everything we possibly can within the confines of the law to disabuse Americans of this cancerous worldview that diminishes human beings.
The problem is with the tribalistic mindset, the Democrats, and I would love to see a Mark Antoine, an Alamo talk, and people that are friends of mine and that I like, I mean, that are Democrat, whatever, repudiate this and say, no, we're not going to take over our party. The Democrat Party is going to be the Democrat Party, the Bill Maher's of the world, the old John Fettermans, the old Tulsi Gabbards, the old Bobby Kennedys, the old fill in the blank, that the Democrat, the classical liberal, the Democrat, because I like a two-party system. If we have to have it that way, I'd rather have a no-party system and then just debate ideas. And let's see what, because you have all the different political bullshit that comes along with both parties. But these ideas are horrible. The DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, is going to destroy. It is not conducive for a constitutional republic. And and they're saying they're trying to remake the system.
And so we just should clarify, it was Megan Romer, a DSA co-chair, that appeared on Fox News Sunday to talk about their platform with Shannon Bream. That's where this comes from.
Wow.
And so
they're not even trying to hide it.
Yeah, and this idea that, well, there's these nice Democrats and they're moderates and that's the majority of the party and this is some fringe minority and they're just sort of hoping it goes away and they're sort of distancing themselves. It's bullshit. Just want to call this out right now. This is the shared ideology of the entire Democrat establishment. The difference is one side is honest and the other side isn't. The difference is this side's coming for all of it, and the other side didn't realize it would include them.
Right.
Those are the differences, okay?
That's good.
The reality is there's agreement, there's shared agreement on this world view.
But because
So
my
let that
enemy's
sink
enemy
in.
is my friend. And so what they're doing is they're capitalizing on people's disdain and disappointment with Congress. So because Congress has such a low approval rating, it sounds reasonable on the surface. Let's replace it then. If they suck so bad and they're not serving us and they're not of the people, by the people, for the people, let's make it about you. And so they promise all this bullshit and they say, let's replace a system that's failing us. But no one's thinking it through what they're going to replace it with. So they're letting their rightful disenchantment, disgust, whatever. I mean, it's disgusting because we don't put in the right people. And we've allowed the Woodrow Wilsons of the past to screw up, and the administrative state to screw up the ideas of the Constitution, of this constitutional republic that our founding fathers believed in. I mean, Woodrow Wilson he believed the Constitution was an impediment to progressivism. Woodrow Wilson, this is decades ago. I mean, right? And progressivism, the good definition that I like to use is the perfection of man and his society through the instrumentality of the state. The perfection of man. Well, the perfect, I mean, a common sense person knows that humankind, men, women are not perfect. And the instrumentality of the state, that means that requires the government to not be restrained in its power. If we want the government to perfect man through its instrumentality, that means you have to give them more power, a bigger government, a smaller citizen, and give them more power and more resources and take them away from us because the government's going to fix things. How is that a good idea? Because we have examples of that.
Sure.
And so, I mean, this is where Democrats and Republicans, and I wish Democrats would push back and take their party back, really take their party back.
But they don't want to be thrown out, and that's what will happen.
But all,
I mean,
the reality is
there's
that
still more
all
of them
of
left.
they're going to, but
it's not a fringe phenomenon.
No.
And all of the polling shows that. Fox News, 52% of Democrats now hold a favorable view. 52% of Democrats now hold a favorable view of socialism, compared to 43% that hold an unfavorable view. And it's a majority of Democrat voters, not some rebellious minority that embrace socialism outright. Gallup, or was it Gallup polling, which was cited by CNN, and I got to give kudos to Harry Enton because he did some good work this week. And I just went back to try to pull up some of the numbers from his website. But he mentioned that Gallup polling found that it's even higher than 52%. It's 66% of Democrats hold a positive view of socialism. So, I mean, different pollsters, different methodologies, I get it. But the reality is it's the same conclusion, that the party is not sort of incrementally moving this direction. It's a full wind sprint. They're not shying away from it. I was trying to find, and go back to Enton this week. He's talking about Francesca Hung, who is a socialist contender for governor in Wisconsin. And she's looking amazing. I mean, her numbers look fantastic. I mean, it looks like he called it the runaway favorite. This is what Enton said. She's a Democratic Socialist. Her chance is up like a rocket. 96% chance to be the Democratic nominee in Wisconsin. A Democratic Socialist, according to the cash prediction markets, he said. So this is not just happening in New York or Philadelphia, in Denver. It looks to me like it's going to be happening in a place like Wisconsin, which of course is a very purple state. And he goes on to explain that this is not some fringe. It's replete through the party. It's gaining steam. And so what does the future look like? Now, fortunately, for now, on a general basis, it's not popular. It's gaining steam. It's consuming the Democrat Party.
The momentum they've
not
gained
the broader electorate.
in a short period of time is
That's the problem.
It's scary. I mean, and this is where I really encourage my Democrat friends to please just fight for your party. Either that or come over to vote independent at least. I mean, you don't have to say you vote Republican. I vote a certain way. I'm not a Republican. I vote Republican.
Yeah.
And I just make it because I don't want to. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christ follower. I'm a daddy. I'm a husband. I'm an American who loves this country, of Lebanese Mexican descent, who happens to vote a certain way because the platform lends to my worldview. That's it. The platform is just an expression of your worldview, and that worldview is destructive. It is not. This country will not last. I'm telling you. The crocodile's coming for you, and you've seen that over and over again.
It doesn't liberate human beings.
No.
The freedoms that are promised never materialized because it is based on theft. It is based on taking what isn't yours to give to people who don't deserve it and haven't earned it. I'm all for compassion, but you don't steal from somebody to do that.
I mean, look at the places that have tried this out. No one has toilet paper. You're wiping your ass with a water hose. I mean, you have nothing. You're fighting for food. You have no thriving. There's no. I mean, the World Cup showed that the world was like, man, America's great. The ideas. Now, it's not perfect. I get that, but you don't abuse an idea. You don't reject an ideology by its abuse, right? Judge an ideology by its abuse. Yes, this country and this idea in our system and the bureaucracy has been abused. Yes. I got that. Refine it. Get the right people in.
Exactly.
Get rid of the administrative state. All these three-letter organizations that are not elected, they're not representing the people. They can't be held accountable. They're making laws. They're enforcing laws. That's not constitutional republic. That is not the idea of a constitution and our founding fathers. We need to get rid of the administrative state. I mean, people warned about that, and they're playing off people's discontent for the abuse of our government and our country, and that's why. And I'm not trying to change topics. I promise you, we'll go here if you want to later. But that's why I'm so critical on Trump and Republicans. Because we squandered an opportunity. When I see Trump and I hear people talk about Trump, when he was elected, people were like just flocking to him. And now, not only does he look terrible, and you can tell that he's just not taking care of himself, he looks terrible, but people aren't looking at him the same way. And we squandered that grace. I'm so angry about that, because that's how you collecting the people together under an umbrella of freedom. That's what I want. And Democrats are welcome under an umbrella of freedom. We can debate ideas on how to implement that freedom. That's fine. That's healthy.
Some of that I can imagine, Nico, it must be very overwhelming. I don't care who it is.
For who?
For any national leader right now. I mean, even Trump, who seems like he's indomitable. I mean, he's like 80 years old, and he seems to have sort of the energy of a Duracell bunny, but even that's changing.
Not lately, yeah.
But the point is, I mean, I don't care who you are. This has been decades in the making. They've sieged the institutions. American communists have been enormously successful. It's not in a corner of the government. It's throughout the government. They've seized the American classroom. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is the outgrowth of this worldview. This notion that man gets to decide whatever man wants, that man has no moral boundaries. An assault on American constitutionalism. The idea that the Bill of Rights is fungible. It gets to be sort of living and breathing whatever it is that you want it to be. I mean, this has been taught in the American classroom, for goodness sakes. So until we get a hold of the American classroom, this is never going to change. It'll be constant.
George, the only chance
I think he's overwhelmed. I mean, because
maybe so, but you, of course, but the way you change, the chance of changing the system being taken over, is by the power of the people. He was the most popular during that election, and he was starting off strong. And that's why you have to stay focused, keep the people with you, keep your tent wide. That's how you have the power. You know, the whole too big to rig, that really worked. And that's how you change. And you can be the liberator. You can be the one that fixes. He's the one that ran on the swamp, the whole swamp shit. I mean, he was, I thought that was a hyperbole. He was right. I mean, he still is right. Anyone that says there's a swamp out there is right. But what I'm saying is this isn't the way you do it. I mean, he's losing his popularity. I mean, I don't know what his legacy is going to be. I guess he still has 2 years, but it doesn't look good. Midterms, whatever, we can debate that another time. That's not a topic for today. I mean, what's his legacy going to be? He looks like he's wearing out. The Energizer Bunny is the batteries are running out. I mean, he just looks bad. He's gained weight.
Everywhere
he's fallen asleep. He's misspeaking. He's forgetful. I mean, again, and I'm getting he's 80 and he's not healthy. But I'm just saying he's squandered this opportunity. That's why I get so frustrated, because I want America to win. And if Trump is that catalyst, then great. I just want America to win.
I agree with that. You know, I agree with that assessment. I'm just stepping back and saying, therefore what? Because who else is going to fare better? Let's assume a Rubio. This is overwhelming. I mean, you got to just admit this is an overwhelming proposition.
Then don't say it can be fixed. Then we're screwed.
Well, I mean, you got to remain somewhat optimistic. You can't just sort of curl up in a fetal position, right?
I know, but then die doing it. Then go down swinging. Go down swinging all the way. Don't conform. Don't be strategic. Listen to your advisors. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Give it the old college try, and then go down swinging. That's your legacy.
It's been constant. From day one, it's been constant.
And he's sustained
He had a cabinet he couldn't trust. He had advisors around him who jumped ship.
Or second?
The Trump 1.0.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Who are undermining him, right? Then he goes after 4 years of lawfare.
Agreed.
Just constant bullshit, trumped up charges.
I agree.
One after another. It was patently obvious to anyone. You have to go to law school to figure out what was going on. Gets back into the presidency, right? I mean, executive order after executive order. Where's Congress been? I mean, really, look at their approval ratings. They're low as hell for a reason, because people are not happy about the fact that Congress is not aligned with the agenda of the president, at least in the sense that they will fight for it with intensity.
That's on the Republican
The American
side,
Senate, I mean, this has been a joke under John Thune.
Talk to Cornyn about.
I mean, if it was Biden with the Democratic House and Democratic Senate, you could say what you want about the Democrats, but you want to talk about absolute unity. You want to talk about a uniparty. Absolute unity. They'll just march lock and step.
Be careful what
Trump
you ask
has
for.
never enjoyed that.
Well, okay, I got that, but then therefore what? But he has shown resilience. I mean, if like you said, President 1.0, his presidency, and then those 4 years, call it what you. He actually, that was part of his mantra that he's tough. He's fighting. People love that. He's fighting for us. So look what he went through. They're coming after you. I'm standing in their way. That, I mean, holy shit. Talk about big ball in it and people's chest. Thank you, President Trump. And that's why he grew in popularity. And then forget about it when he was shot and this and coming back and his mindset and all this other crap, which we don't know much about that shooter, which is weird. But I mean, all that stuff, that was the momentum. That was part of it. So why abandon that whole culture and mindset that
But
got
I'm just
you
trying
there?
to think tactics. So he's got a Congress, he's got a House of Republicans that have a paper thin majority. In the Senate, he has a greater majority, but he's got lots of fecklessness. Can't even get unity, can't get any linearity or any alignment on key agenda
How do
items.
you
The SAVE
control
Act
them?
is a no fucking brainer. No brainer. And all John Thune does is throw up dust. This is central to
I know,
success
but
for the
brother,
country.
how do you influence these people? You influence these people by having the power of the people. When he says, "Hey, vote against that person, get him out of office," and then people trust him so much because they know he's fighting for them and he's against the system, and they're like, "Oh shit, I got to listen to Trump." He's lost that influence over Congress. Early on, he had it. He said something, they did it, and then at some point he lost it. And I know you don't want to talk about this. It started over Epstein. I'm telling you, the lack of trust started over Epstein. That was the crack. And then there was division. And then it was the Jews. And then it was this. And then it's now the Iran war. And then they lost the narrative on that. And you can see this domino effect. And then Trump had his Trumpian moments, but lost the coolness in Trump, where they wrote it off because he was being badass. And now it's like, oh brother, and here he goes being an asshole again. For me, I can see it play out of where he got a crack in his chink, and then how it just got wider and wider, like
So
a drip.
I'm stepping back and I'm saying, somebody who is intimately familiar with the consequences of communism, and I'm stepping back and saying, yeah, legitimate criticism about how Epstein was handled. But the reality is this: fast forward 10 years under a Harris administration, and the American voter won't give two fucks about Epstein. You know why? Because they'll be desolate, economically and otherwise. And the reality is, you send Trump to the White House in 2024 on legitimate issues of the American border being gutted, okay, where you have millions of foreigners coming here.
Yep.
Okay, that's A.
Yep.
And just total economic depravity. And so Trump gets launched to the White House on those concerns, singular concerns. And then somehow Epstein is enough.
George, I think you're missing it, Dad.
I don't think I am.
Yeah, no, let me tell you why. Can I say that respectfully? Because I don't want to forget to talk. It's because you just said it in your opening statements here. You said, I am intimately familiar with communism. You're more familiar than I am, than all of our listeners, because you lived in it for a period of time. You truly ran, and I love your parents' story. But not everybody thinks like you. That's why. So it's like me trying a case. Like, you don't know how I analyze this evidence. I analyze, and this case is bullshit. It's like, I don't know how you analyze the evidence because I'm not you and I don't understand it. Make it make sense to me. No, but you got to see it my way. I don't see it your way.
And I was actually not sharing that as a defense of Trump.
No.
I was sharing it as an indictment of the American voter, because this is where we are right now. We chase the shiny object. I can't believe that the same electorate that put Trump in the White House in November 2024 will chase the shiny object on Epstein.
All right, brother, it's not a shiny
Fucking idiots.
object,
I'm
Daddy.
sorry. This is the system we're in. And you know what? Even if as I'm saying that, I realize people don't know what they don't know. And so I'm asking rhetorically, is it going to take the loss of your country before you realize that while there are legitimate concerns in Epstein, and by the way, virtually none have anything to do with Trump. That's the irony here.
Then don't act like they do.
I understand.
That's it.
But see, my point is, we can talk tactics, we can talk perception, we can talk impression management, we can talk all about all the PR stuff. We can talk about optics, we can talk about that all day long. But the reality is this: is it going to take the loss of your country? Because no one's going to give a shit about impression management. No one's going to care about optics at some point. Is it going to take that? How about, here's where the Republican Party has failed. They failed to continue, and you've brought this up, the gusto, the intensity, the fervor, the going on podcasts, the communication strategy to continue to alert people that we haven't really solved the problem yet. It lingers on the edge here, just waiting to come back in, and that we need to maintain that intensity and to not get distracted. This is where I think Trump has not had the help. The dude has literally been on his own. Where's Congress? Nowhere. And we are
the rest of the world?
flush.
But he knew that going in, brother. He knew that from the first time. He knew that going in.
All I'm saying is the man's alone. The man's alone. It is an act of God for this guy to get some assistance, really, from his own party. And it's frustrating as hell. Contrast with Democrats. They're $2 million in the red. They're mortgaging their national headquarters. They're broke. On their own and on their own merits, they have no merit. People don't vote for Democrats because of issues. And they know that, which is why they had to import an artificial voting base. Nobody wants what they're selling. But that party is corrupt as fuck, and they're stupid as shit. And Americans don't want it. When Americans are actually introduced to what the Democrats are selling, okay, they run for the high grass. They don't want anything to do with it. And so on the issues, that the Republicans have win after win. Where are they? What they lack is courage. Why? Why do our people lack courage?
If that was true, what you just said, George, then California wouldn't be in the condition. Portland, Michigan, we can go on and on and on. People keep voting these people back in, and so it's not as simple. It's definitely not easy as what you're saying, in the sense that people don't see it that way. I mean, I get that you see it.
Well, how am I simplifying it?
Well, I'm just saying because we're not winning.
No,
I mean,
I'm not.
To me, I'm a result-based guy. Of course, I want to win. The process matters. I won't lie, cheat, and steal to win. We got to have honor. I got to honor God in my process. But in the end, the results. If you say nobody wants what the Democrats are selling, but they still win elections, and let's see what happens in November, and let's see if they want what they're selling.
But that's not a dismissal of what I'm saying. I'm simply saying we're not filling the gap. The Democrats don't have anything to sell, but they're very good at spinning it as if they do. And they get very little resistance, and our people are nowhere.
But what I'm saying is, I agree.
We're flush with cash, and we're not employing it.
But Trump knew this. He knew that Congress was going to be tough. He passed the big, beautiful bill because he parlayed his popularity at the time. And the way you get shit done is you stay popular. Go back and let's study the movie Gladiator. Why was he so popular? Because he had the power of the people, and why he was a threat, and why he had to be killed and his family killed and sent out there, and then he fought back. I mean, that's a kind of a Trump story, fighting back and false accusations.
Big difference.
What's the big difference?
That's an army. It was an army that aligned behind a solid leader.
I'm giving an example. I'm not giving you a one for one.
I want to follow your example because
all I'm saying is
Trump's alone. He's alone.
So was he. He was cut off from his army. He was absolutely alone. He was fighting in the Gladiator. He was fighting in the arena in the stadium. And then they realized it was him. It was what's his face? What was his name? What's his name? What was the character he was playing? You're a movie guy.
Leonidas?
No, that's the
what is
300.
his name?
What is it?
Oh, we're not on 300. Oh, crap.
Gladiator.
Yeah, right. With Russell
Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Was this
Maximus.
Maximus. Thank you. Sorry. Maximus. I mean, he was on his own, and then they realized at the end that it was Maximus, but he was a threat. He was fighting.
Right.
He was attacked. He destroyed his family. I mean, it's really kind of the same. But he had the power of the people. That's how you control Congress. And Trump did that at the beginning very well. And then something happened. I'm telling you, it started, and I'll tell you, I think even before Epstein, it started by miscalculating people's sensitivities, because everyone loved that the border was shored up within 2 weeks. Home run on that, not even a grand slam home run on that. But then his aggression on numbers and this mass deportation process, then people started seeing, and the Democrats played it on them. Like, you're getting a family member and an abuelita and a friend, and this person really is a citizen. And how are you doing this? And you're sweeping up innocent people, and you're being cold about it. You said you were going to go after the criminals, and now you're going after people that are just hardworking. And they played that card, and then Trump got cold feet on that. And he backed off on that.
But I can sympathize with the impulse, Nico. I mean, it's like you win after everything he's been through.
I know, brother.
After everything people see, the injustices under the Biden administration, right? After all that shit, we're scurrying off to Epstein.
But brother,
what the fuck is wrong with us?
But
this guy must have been like,
you can call
this
them,
is exhausting.
I know, but brother, you can call them any name you want to. If that's your jury, guess what? Don't expect to win them. just accept that you're going to get a bad verdict, or you have to adjust to your jury and present it in a way that's going to get them to vote your way. I mean, you have to pick your choices, not your consequences, right? So pick the choice. That's what I have to deal with. That's it. That's my jury. All right, fuck, I got to work with it then.
My attempt here is not to defend Trump. My attempt is to simply make an assessment of the broader political realities, and that it's not about Trump. It's not about any one person. We have cultural rot, and we better wake up
I agree.
to that reality.
But we don't.
No one man, not even Rubio, is going to save us.
I agree.
Okay? This is about cultural rot. And this is a spiritual problem at the core of the country. Apart from Christ, there is no path out of this. There was no path into it apart from Christ. Read the Declaration. Okay? So this is ultimately a spiritual problem. We've abandoned our value system. We've turned inward. It's all about me. This is a serious problem. And we are not informed. We are deeply misinformed. There is a political system that controls the American classroom, and it isn't constitutionally oriented. So people are going to have to take responsibility for their actions. They really are. And I think Trump, yes, I do believe that Trump, as well as his cabinet, assumed that this would never be. I think he dismissed it because I think he just assumed there's no way people would squander, to use your word, would squander the grace they've been given, the opportunities they've been given in the November 24th win, and that they will chase off after this. I think he misjudged it.
I agree.
But I understand peripherally, viscerally, I understand why he would misjudge it, because I think for him to come to face with the fact that the American electorate is this fucking superficial, because we are. We just need to claim it for what it is. And if you don't think our foreign adversaries know that, if you don't think the Chinese know that we're addicted to comfort here, if you don't think the Chinese know that we will sell out our neighbor for comfort and safetyism, then you're deluding yourself. That's the situation right now. It's not about Trump. I realize he's the president of the United States. He's got a platform, and so he's responsible for a lot. But at the end of the day, he's not responsible for everything. He's not responsible for Congress not being there.
No.
We are flush with cash, and yet Congress is repeatedly hesitant to pump money in deeply conservative causes.
Nah, man.
I'm concerned about that. I don't think this is ultimately about Trump. I don't know what the solution is, but I can tell you one thing.
Here's my gauge.
The National Educational Association, in terms of bureaucracy, that's it right there. That's the mothership. You got to go after that.
What's McMahon doing? I thought she's over there trying to...
I think this is an improvement from Betsy DeVos and Trump 1.0, but it's never enough for me. I don't think she's going anywhere near fast
Here's my
enough.
gauge.
Or maybe she is. It's just under the hood.
Maybe
I don't know.
It's a trial lawyer in me and understanding juries. If they had the Republican National Convention again today with the same people that were new speakers come and speak at the Republican National Convention again, I think the answer is no.
I would say 3/4 say no.
I would say no. You'd get your typical, whatever, McConnell and all these other regular people that of course you expect, but all the new people, the lady with all the tats and all this stuff, and all the newer people that came into the umbrella back then, they wouldn't come back today. And to me, as someone that looks at the needle being moved and someone that wants to win and get a verdict, I mean, that matters to me. And so that's what frustrates me. That's what frustrates me. That's why I just loved it. I mean, it was an amazing time. I believe it was God's favor, grace, Trump's perseverance, to give him credit. His appealability, him going on to these shows, him talking, him just being more comfortable in his skin.
Accessible.
People embracing this kind of, okay, he's got these little nuances, but I mean, MMA fighters doing his Trump dance. I mean, soccer players doing the Trump dance. People are going ape shit when he walks into an arena. That's how you win. That's how you gut this rot out that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then you have an opportunity to influence these backstabbers on the Republican side in Congress and all these other. That's how you get them mad, because they're like, well, shit, I can't stand that son of a bitch, but I like my job on self-preservation, so he's going to manipulate them.
Yeah.
But it's going to use manipulation for a good way. Manipulation is not always a bad way, right? We manipulate our kids if you have a good heart. So it would have been used. That's where Trump lost it. He read the room wrong, and he slipped. He had bad advice, whatever you want to call it. The way he started off great, and he had this wonderful momentum, and that's what I'm so frustrated about. So when people that criticize, why do you criticize Trump so much? Because I want this country to do well, and I believe the ideas that he was advocating in his imperfect way will bless this country. And now, as we've said, where's this golden age? It ain't coming, Jack. It ain't coming. That's just the bottom.
So you're saying he failed to recognize both realities, that the same electorate that sent him to a win November 24 because they were deeply disheartened by what was going on at the border and economically, is the same electorate that chased off after Epstein, and failing to recognize that moment and properly attend to it is the issue. I think that's legit.
Daddy. Yeah.
On a silver lining, the same Fox News poll that said 52% of Democrat voters favored socialism also says that only 17% of the general electorate favors socialism, and 77%
Then who is that?
see
then?
it unfavorably.
Who are they?
It's
So they're saying
localized to Democrats.
But what I'm saying, so you're saying because 17%, that doesn't work out the numbers unless you're saying you're talking independents and Republicans.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's
So you're
correct.
got it.
That's correct. And there is something like 20% of independents that lean Democrat are okay with socialism. So the vast majority of independents are not. And so that's thank goodness there's still time. Now, why is this a segue into the Spain discussion?
Everybody wants to talk about Spain right now.
Because if you want to know where we're going, that's why that's relevant. We're talking about where we are and where we've been. Spain is where we're going.
People wake up, please, man.
And Trump's
please.
actually came out this week and said that. You vote for Democrats. Look at what's going on.
Can we get a little bit more nuanced? Can you know how that happened? What happened?
Go ahead.
What happened? Because you had a ruling from what? The Spanish Supreme Court. Elections have consequences. This is why I said, as much as I like Alito and I like Thomas, replace them now. I'm telling you guys, listen to me. Replace them now. You have to with people that are strong, not Comey Barrett conservatives. I'm talking about replace them now or you're going to regret it. I'm telling you right now. But that was a Spanish Supreme Court that made a ruling that said that they couldn't stop them from coming in. And then 60,000 men, essentially, not all, but I get it. But the vast majority, look at the videos.
Majority, military age males. Yeah.
Look at the videos.
Yep.
And they swam 300 meters to Ceuta or Cueta. I mean, maybe I'm pronouncing it like a Mexican instead of like a Spanish person because they have that.
Ceuta.
Ceuta. Yeah, but
Okay.
in Spanish it would be Cueta, but I mean, got it. So Ceuta, it's a Spanish territory. There's only 84,000 citizens there. 60,000. Now, allegedly, the military showed up and sent 48,000 of them back for now, but who the hell knows? All I'm saying is they're screwed. And then they're gonna make it onto the mainland, and then under the European Union, if you make it into one European country, you can travel all of them. That's why the idea of Brexit was a good idea, but it was implemented wrong because they didn't want to be part of that shit. They go, look, they recognized that their country was being overtaken, and they said we don't want to be part of that. So if that dumbass lets in somebody in their country, they can come into my country and set up shop and not leave and bring their culture and then do whatever they want to do, and then you have a weak government, you can have a terrible society, and so. I'm just giving you, so that's where we're going, guys. And even if you're a Democrat, I'm telling you, I'm really going to make a push for the classical liberal to stand up and fight for your party. I'm serious. Fight for your party. If that's your identity, if that's your political leaning, fair enough. But not socialism and not communism. Or that's not the American way. It's never been the American way. And we used to have a healthy fear of it to where it was taught in schools, in public schools. Here's communism. We don't like it. We don't want it. Stand up for this constitutional republic we have. Educate them about how the system works. Show them where the flaws are. Vote people good in. Don't have administrative state. Woodrow Wilson sucks. Teach people about this and then get involved and elect people that are going to honor the will of the people. I'm every ounce of me. Of the people, but the power is in the people. The power is in the people. And to my point earlier, and that's where Trump forgot, that's how he stays strong. And he lost focus on the people. For him, and I know what he meant, Epstein this, that's stupid, that's ridiculous, the hoax. Just terrible strategy on this. That's why I'm so frustrated. All right, I'll stop. All I'm saying is Spain is coming if you don't watch it. And if you don't think that's true, just look at New York. That's a couple of notches behind Spain. And then you better be thinking that we have a Second Amendment at that point because they don't, and they're screwed. I'm telling you right now, you talk about it's an all-out war. That is an invasion to protect yourself and your children and your daughters and your wives and even your other children. I mean, this is not a joke. Study history, right? Study history.
It's a fact.
I mean, this is not a Republican or conservative thing. It's just a history thing. Just study history. So I don't know what more to say about
and
that.
the history of Ceuta is interesting because there are really two mass ways or main ways into Europe this way from a migration perspective, Nico. We saw the first wave 10 years ago. Remember? So when we started talking about Islamic insurgency
in Germany,
inside Europe, because we saw literally 1 million people come into Greece and Italy, and they came in through Libya. That's one connection point. And so this is really kind of a tragedy of geography because of how close Sicily and Greece are to Africa on that end. Here, you're talking about northern side, and you're talking the south of Spain and Portugal. This is incredibly close to Portugal as well. So you've got Ceuta, which is at the very tip of Morocco. Mm-hmm. And so at one point, Spain controlled all of that. It controlled all under colonialization. It controlled it really through the 1950s. But it held on to Ceuta and Melilla. I think there's another province there because it was decidedly in character, mostly Spanish. Now it's a kind of a crapshoot, maybe half. There's a lot of North Africans now, and the other half's Spanish. But it held on to Ceuta because it had this kind of Iberian character to it. And so it's kind of weird because it's got a bunch of fences around it. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, because of everything that's going on in Europe right now, you feel like it's a ticking time bomb. And so sure enough, you have this surge in one day, to your point. Yeah. I don't think people realize this isn't a migration. This is, if you've got a town that's 85,000 people, like you said, and now 60,000 people come in and storm it, that's an invasion. And you've destroyed the town. And that's exactly, I mean, there's video after video of them going into private residences. They've sieged the institutions, literally. Not philosophically, but literally. And so this notion that they're being dispelled, they're not being dispelled. And I'll tell you why. Last year, this piece of shit, Pedro Sanchez, who wants the destruction. People, listen to me.
He's the president?
Yes, he wants this. He's a socialist communist. This is what he wants. He's ran on it. God. Okay? Let that sink in. This is part of the platform. 1 million people that he invited came in. And in one foul swoop, he declared amnesty over 500,000. This is in less than Pedro Sanchez. Look it up. This is part and parcel of that.
Wow.
He's not freaked out over this. He's rejoicing over this.
He'll never live in it. He'll never live in it, though.
Of course not. He'll do it to amass personal power.
Yep.
And his own Spanish people can go to hell for all he cares. Man. But Giorgia Meloni is not pushing back and saying, this can't continue. Because you can't have this sort of free travel zone, no passport deal inside. The concept makes sense, kind of like in the United States, although they are separate cultures. They're unified by what? By Western culture, which is what? Which is really vested in Judeo-Christian philosophy.
Right.
And so the value system is the same across Europe and has been the same. That's why it would work. The problem is they didn't shore up their exterior borders. They never have. And so Meloni's pushing back. Good. Others are pushing back and saying, nope, that can't continue.
Even Germany's pushing back now.
But here's a dirty little secret. How successful is that going to be?
Yeah.
They're already there. I mean, just last week, you had another 1,500 that rode up on Great Britain. This is happening daily.
God, that's ridiculous, man.
There's no resolve. And part of the problem is because you still can't have an honest conversation about it. The left has control over most of the European political system. And so censorship is writ large. So you can't even call it out. You got to call it migration. They're undocumented workers. They're newcomers. You can't call it for what it is. These are illegal aliens. They're here illegally, and they need to get the hell out.
I agree.
And we need to have the political, and that's right, the physical resolve to get them the fuck out.
Yep.
That's the reality.
That's it.
Or don't survive.
Yeah.
But they will not survive this.
And once again, Democrats and Republicans, like they did in the last election, should come together on this. We got to sustain our culture.
But who are you talking about?
What do you mean?
When you say that they should come together on this?
Voters.
I want to say, if you're saying this rhetorically.
Voters. I'm looking at the Valley.
Oh, the voters.
I'm looking at the Valley. I'm talking about the voters of the United States.
Because the party that represents Democratic voters wants this to happen.
You got to rebuke that. And then you have tough decisions to make. If you consider yourself a Democrat, do you consider yourself an independent? And then you have to, in my humble opinion, you have to prioritize your issues. Remember the last election, almost became a one-issue voter, and it was about illegal immigration. It was illegal aliens. It was the border. Because it didn't matter what I thought about abortion, family, capitalism. It didn't matter about what I thought about. Look at this. You think Ceuta or Ceuta, whatever the hell it's called, gives a shit about anything else other than their border now? They don't care about anything. You can have an opinion about whatever you want, schools and this and vaccines and free speech and all this other shit. Doesn't matter. None of it matters because they don't have a border anymore and they don't have a country. So that's why so you have to prioritize. Say, this is one of my great issues, but without this one doesn't matter. So you have to prioritize things. And then you vote accordingly.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you try to influence the people that are running to maybe take on more of your ideology when it comes to those other lesser issues. But we've got to agree on something. Like, how about having a country? I mean, you know that Biden administration lied about the border, that it was secure. It was an outright lie. Biden administration promulgated the lie on Fauci. The only good thing about this Fauci shit is it gives Trump and Republicans some cover. That's the only good thing about this thing, because it infuriates me. But the only good thing is all the ire against Trump. You can say, yeah, but the Democrats pushed this asshole. And they're the ones that furthered this lie. And they were part of the death of my family member or the loss of my business. How many small businesses were lost during that time that never reopened? You hate corporations so bad? Well, then why are you destroying small business? Because you want power. You don't give a shit about small business. It just sounds good. I don't want someone that tells me something good. I want someone that does good, and you have to prioritize that. So that would be my approach, and encouraging Democrats or people that are in that party that don't think like a socialist or a communist and don't want it. I mean, there's Democrats that can't stand the men and women sports bullshit and the locker room stuff. They can't stand it. Well, how bad can't you stand it? They don't want open borders. Well, how bad don't you want open borders?
I'm telling you, they're not backing off from that. They're
Who
not
is?
backing
Who
off
is
from
it?
it. Look,
Who is
a
it?
couple Democrats aren't
I
backing off.
got that, but that's why I'm encouraging.
And it's not happening in Europe. Even after this, 2 weeks ago, you had a truck. Oh boy, that never happened before. You had a truck that drives into a parade of people. All right, injures a couple, kills a couple, injures a couple. A couple days later, and I check me out on that, Dom, but pretty sure this was a gay pride deal. And then a couple days later, you had an individual that was in, I think, Berlin. And then you had another individual in France who went on a rampage, ended up stabbing a bunch of women.
Yep.
And so you see the LGBTQ community spokespersons come out. And if you listen to what they're saying in the aftermath of those things, what you hear is disappointment that it wasn't some white male. I'm telling you, this is religious. Listen to the statements. This is a sickness. We spent decades teaching people to feel guilty about being white. We've literally, in the name of fighting racism, duped Americans into sending their kids into a corrupt church-like environment called the American classroom, where you teach them to hate themselves if they're white.
Right.
You teach them to hate the sexuality that God gave them.
Yep.
If they're a boy, they're actually a girl if they feel like it. If they're a girl, they're actually a boy if they feel like it. If they're gay, that's totally normal and totally wonderful. Think about that for a moment. Now you've turned sexuality on their head.
Yep.
You say anything, you're not compassionate. You say anything, you're being discriminatory. You say anything that remotely sounds like common sense, you're being a racist. You can't even have the conversation now. So now you need to watch your death, but then to embrace it by being silent about it. So you've spent decades doing this. And so now, while they're being slaughtered, they're taking to the microphones. Check me out on that, Dom. Pull me up on this. Listen to the statements. What I'm hearing is, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. It's basically not a white male. Who do they blame? They blame conservative movements, the fascists. So while the guillotine's coming down on the neck, they're still blaming a paper tiger. Meanwhile, the real danger, the Islamization of Europe,
Yep.
a corrupt, death-based world view, is getting away with murder. And no one's calling it out, and the media is leading the charge because the media is made up of human beings that came through the same corrupt educational system. So we have, in fact, and I think we've mentioned here a number of times, it's the ultimate totalitarian novel. Read George Orwell's 1984.
Yep. Tell him.
And he talks about something called newspeak,
Tell him.
which is the changing of the language to create a fake reality. So you can't even tell the difference between what's true and what's not. That is buttressed by a system of censorship, so that even if you want to say what is true, you cannot. You become a fringe pariah. So I wonder if if Europe has the moral or even the philosophical resources, or even just a self-survival at this point. I'm deeply worried about it. We have family in Portugal, lots of family in Portugal. We're ethnically Portuguese. And I'm very concerned about it. Very concerned. I never dreamed it would happen in Portugal.
What I don't want, and then we can wrap up, what I don't want is I don't want the only way to stop it to have some type of civil conflict.
Yeah.
And that's where it goes, guys. So that's why I appeal to my Democrat friends that this is something we should agree on. We should agree on preserving our borders, not favoring the Islamization of the world and this country. Sorry. I mean, we can debate about LGBT issues, but there are no pride parades in an Islamic country.
Yeah.
There's no Pride Month.
Right.
You're not going to do some protest. You're not doing shit. I promise you, except getting crushed. I mean, and I believe in having discussions and advocacy, and let's persuade each other, not hurt each other. And that's what's going to happen. And the Islamization, we've talked about it before. They come in as, we're a minority, we're being abused. They change the narrative. Then they have political influence, and then they're in power and they crush you.
Exactly.
We've seen it over and over again. Morocco, Syria, Egypt, Jordan, Afghanistan. I can go on and on. There's way more than that.
Dozens of countries.
Dozens of countries. They were not Islamic, and now they are. And then there's no freedom there. That's all I care about is freedom. I'm going after the ideology, not the people. The ideas suck. I want to talk about ideas. Not all ideas are the same. And this is a suicidal mission, and I don't want this country to be on it. We've got to wake up. We've got to come together and understand what we disagree on and what we agree on and prioritize that. And that's why I get frustrated with Republicans and President Trump and all this other stuff, because in the end, I love this country. I love the idea of the Constitution. Right. Our founding fathers sacrificed everything, imperfect as they were, for us to have this freedom. Everybody wants to come to this country for a reason, for now. But hey, don't think we can, 250 ain't shit. How long did Rome last? 1,000 years? Mm-hmm. 1,000 years, 4 times longer than us, conquering the world. And they crumbled from within. They didn't get defeated from the outside. They crumbled from within because people didn't assimilate and they lost their culture. So,
one of the scariest phrases I've heard recently is, "Thank God I live in Texas because it can't happen here."
Yeah, right. It's on its way.
Okay.
Go to an urban city in Texas.
Yeah.
Go anywhere. I mean, if it wasn't for the rural towns and cities and the other people, we'd be screwed. We'd be absolutely screwed. And so you might not like Abbott, you might not like the Republican, you might not like Ken Paxton, you might not like, but Tallarico is all in on this shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he'll lie and change whatever he says to make it sound okay.
I mean, he got his ass handed to him a few weeks ago by an audience that were predominantly black, and now he's going to spend all kinds of millions and millions of dollars, which he has, lying to the black community. That's what he's going to do. He's going to have to lie to them because they properly called him out. And so you can dislike, again, prioritize. Ken has a lot of fucking flaws. I got it. But think about the ideas that he's going to advocate versus, and then prioritize them is my point. I want freedom. I want the Democrat to be free. I want the Republican to be free. I want an exchange of ideas. I want capitalism. I want you to have an idea of business, grow your business, earn, give money to charities. I want you to live your life, as long as it doesn't interfere with somebody else. So, and we just have to share ideas, and I can't stand censorship. So I'm a guy that pushes freedom, man. That's it. So anything else, Karen?
No,
I know we got to wrap up. I got to get to boxing with the kids. Anybody else? Nothing? All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Please continue to share this, like, subscribe. But we should say at the beginning probably. And share this with people you think may benefit from it. Please leave a comment. We'll do our best to check them. Have a blessed weekend. Look, summer's almost over, guys.
I know.
Oh, traffic is going to suck. Traffic's going to suck. Suck.
My kids are going to leave the house, though.
Our kids go back on the 12th. On the 12th
I
is what I think.
know,
And then,
it's fast.
Well, it's life. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.